Hey, Coach. My name is Tom Woods with R2 Sports Technology. What we're going to do in this video here for a few minutes is explain one of our offerings called Codebreaker. What Codebreaker is all about, it's tendencies. That's to set your frame of reference, at least. We're talking about tendencies, but we're going to talk about tendencies in a way that are probably not the way you guys are typically used to uh, getting to tendencies. I should say that. A lot of things that we'll show you here in a minute, what Codebreaker generates for you, will seem familiar. The thing that's different is the volume and the accuracy of the tendencies that we're able to generate with our what's called Codebreaker with our technology platform. So what I'm going to do for a minute, I'm going to start by kind of sketching out the roots of where this comes from, and as we walk through that process, hopefully you'll start to understand why it's different. Because I know if you're like most coaches, I'm sure you have reports out the wazoo. You have no shortage of tendency reports that you can get to, whether it's to your film system, whether it's Catapult Expos or Exos, DV Sport or Huddle or any of those different film systems. You have no shortage of your ability to kick out a tendency report that shows you, say, down and distance, and here's what a team likes to do. The thing that's different about Codebreaker is that we find hidden high probability tendencies that are down in data. And like we'll show you here in a minute, you would be surprised. I think in most everybody's film data, there are hundreds, if not literally thousands, of tendencies of things that happen at 80, 90+%. You probably don't see a whole lot of those. So if my experience tells me, right, because a typical film system report that you kick out, something like down distance, formation based reports, those kind of things, they're great, and the data in there is correct. It's not that they're not right, but most high probability things, every coach has a fingerprint to them that if you can detect it, you can really tell what a guy's going to do in a certain situation. The key though is that a fingerprint for a coach usually reveals itself in a more specific situation than you would generally see in something as simple as down distance, field position, formation. So it's not common. I mean, you guys think about what you guys do as coaches. You are very conscious of trying to not be too predictable. And you certainly don't want to be predictable in an obvious situation. Well, most film reports, not film reports, but tendency reports, are looking at standard situations, typical fundamental situations. Those are the situations where people are trying to not be too predictable. So it's not too surprising that we don't find a lot of 80, 90% tendencies. What you'll find though in data is they do exist all over the place, but they're in these unique situations. So you may not see, like, the first and 10 may not be a dominant tendency for anybody, but first and 10 on the right hash when they're using a specific motion, when you start to get some of the more specific elements in play, that's where things start to pop. And you start to be able to see what a guy's really going to do or not do in a situation with a high degree of certainty. The problem is there's so many combinations of things. It can be really, really hard, if not impossible, to do it by hand. To go through all the different combinations you have to do to find things gets too hard to do, and that's what Codebreaker does. But let's do this. I'm gonna pop open a see if I can do this. I'm gonna pop open a whiteboard real quick, and I'm gonna look at Codebreaker itself. I want to take a second here and just kind of sketch out um, the genesis of Codebreaker and what it does to help you kind of understand how it's different from what you might normally see. So I'm going to sketch here on this kind of whiteboard here for a second, just to give you an idea. Think about, as a coach, when we think about tendencies, so much when we talk to coaches, we talk about why they're breaking down film. Most of the time, the answer you're going to get is a predictive type of reason, right? I want to know what this guy's going to do. I'm trying to pick up on tendencies. I want to know what he's got in store. If you think about the process of that for a second, let's talk about things that you can see pre-snap and post-snap for a second. I'm going to draw the line here. Let's call this pre-snap. So think about the kind of things, and you can see them at various times, but prior to the snap of the ball, there's certain things that are knowable. The down, the distance, the yard line that a guy is on. You may, if it matters to you, may know the hash. You can know what personnel grouping an offense or defense is in. You can tell if it's an offense, what formation they're showing. You can see if they're using motion. You can see, what their backfield looks like. If you're looking at a defense, you can see are their corners up? Where they back. You can see position of the safeties. There's all these different things that you can see pre-snap. So there's lots of pre-snap information that's out there, right? And as a coach, you're looking to try and predict certain things. You want to know, hey, is this guy what's he gonna do? Is he gonna run or pass? Is he gonna go to the left or the right? Or you might say to the field or the boundary. You might say, what coverage are they gonna be in? You might say, if they run, what kind of run concept is it gonna be? Who are they going to target? All these different things we want to predict. So you have all this stuff you can see pre-snap. You have all these things you'd like to try and anticipate and predict. Now, what Codebreaker does is this. Here's the key to predicting things with a high degree of accuracy. And I won't be too long on this because I don't want to turn this into a math class. But what's different about what we do is this. If there are certain things that you want to predict, the first thing that we do, and the first thing that's crucial that you have to do if you're going to make an accurate prediction, is you have to know what does and doesn't matter. So if I want to try and predict what coverage a guy's going to be in, I need to be able to look at all these different things I can look at pre-snap. Things like where the safeties are, the down, the distance, the formation, all these different things. I need to test each one of these and see which ones do or don't matter, which ones are statistically significant, okay, without getting too lost in the math. This is what Codebreaker does. Codebreaker automatically goes through and says, okay, this matters, this matters, this matters, this matters, and this matters maybe. But it could be that other things don't matter. So anything that doesn't matter, we want to exclude from consideration. We want to know the things that are statistically significant. Once we find those, what Codebreaker then does is it goes through every combination of things that matters. It looks back through your data and says, okay, let me look at every time they were on the left hash with the safeties back and using this motion and what happened. So it goes back and does this historical record of every combination. Every time we've seen a combination of things that matters, what has this team done? And it basically stores that in a big database of possible outcomes. And that is where we start to find the things that are 80, 90+% likely to happen. Okay. So it's really a function of this. It's about, and that's what doesn't happen in just a typical report. You can generate a report that says, show me this versus this, but it doesn't necessarily mean it matters or doesn't matter. And it doesn't necessarily show you every historical record of all the different combinations of things. It gets too hard to do. If you think about the number of combinations, just real quick, if we look at, take distance, maybe you break distance into, even if we broke it into 3 categories, short, medium, and long, you'd have 3 different distances. Let's say an offense shows, 4 different personnel groupings, and they have, 10 different formations that they use. Even looking at the combinations of that is the way you combine those is you multiply them. It's 3 times 4 times 10. That alone, just those alone, is 120 different combinations of that you'd have to go and explore if you wanted to be sure that you were looking for tendencies everywhere. Okay, so in many teams, you look at the number of possible things you can look at pre-snap. It's literally hundreds of thousands of different possible combinations you'd have to search. That's what Codebreaker does, and that's what makes Codebreaker different from anything else you'll see from any type of tendency work or predictive work in this space at all. It's about laying the data out, finding out what does and doesn't matter, and exploring all the possible combinations of that. When we do that, we get output results that look something like this. And let me take a second here and I'll kind of give you an idea of what a typical output looks like for you here. Okay, so when Codebreaker finishes that process of looking at everything that does and doesn't matter, going through all the combinations of that and pulling out everything that's happened historically with the team, you get an output that looks something like this. And let me kind of just give you a quick explanation. This is Codebreaker output for a prominent high school program in Alabama. Okay, now I say that I don't mean to overemphasize high school. We do this with teams at all levels. All you need is film data. You guys send us film data, we run Codebreaker, we generate output. I say that only because the sheer number of tendencies I'm going to show you here in a minute, this is from a high school football program. I mean, you use, and some, some high schools do better with data than others. But the point is, if you're the University of Alabama, you're going to see a ton of data, and if you do a good job of your film data, you're going to see a ton of data. So this isn't something that will only work for a team with a bunch of money. This is most everybody out there that's doing anything with film data can get a lot of really powerful information out of this. But let's give you a quick idea of what we're looking at here. See this big center section here. We have over here on the left, you can see it says a category here in bold. It says FLD/BND. So what this was one of those things that they wanted to try and predict was direction. And this is a defensive coordinator looking at an opposing offense in this case. And so they had a category of things they wanted to try and predict. What they wanted to know, hey, can we know with a certain degree of certainty if they're going to go to the field or the boundary? Okay, so it's the field or the boundary directional category here. And the specific item you see next to it is the boundary. And then you'll see these prediction strings and all these numbers in here, okay? Each one of these is a tendency that has been uncovered that says, hey, there's a good degree of likelihood that they're going to go to the boundary. Now, and you'll see that the prediction string in there tells you what that is. You see over here, there's an 83%, 5 out of 6 times. And the prediction string says if it's third down 7 to 10, FZ was field zone for them. If they're in the middle of the field on 3rd and 7 to 10, and they're in a trips open formation. In the data, we've seen that combination 3 times. Or I'm sorry, we've seen it 6 times. 5 of those 6 times, the play has gone to the boundary. So they're showing us a tendency here that says, okay, there's a pretty good degree of likelihood that if they show us this look, it's going to the boundary. Now that's something that's probably doesn't come up in a standard report, because the standard report has to find that unique combination of things, and you have to be looking for that specific outcome. But this is an example of the types of things it can generate. Now in this list, there's over 2,500 tendencies in here right now that are all 80% or higher across all these different types of things they might want to see. Now this platform here, this is called Tableau software. It's something that we'll package a lot of our things into because it makes it easy for guys to kind of interact with, but we also just generate reports that we send off to our coaches. But to give you a quick idea of how quickly you can filter in here, I could say I want to see all these tendencies that are, let's say 90% or higher. I got it set for 80 right now. I could move this to 90%. Try to dial in. There's 91%, close enough. Let's say 91% or higher. I could dial in the number of occurrences. So I could say I want to see things that happen at least 10 times. So I don't want my sample size to be too low. So let's see what I got where I can be 90% sure 10 or more occurrences. Okay. And then there's one other field we have in here called indicators. Indicators tell you how many things you'd have to pick up on, how many things have to line up for you to get to that tendency. So if too many things have to line up, that gets hard because there's, it becomes impractical to try and help a, 18, 19-year-old kid pick up on this, and this equals this. So we can turn that way down. We can say where there's only have to be, say, 3 things at most that you'd have to pick up on. So I can dial that in, boom, boom, boom. And this has got me a list, it shows me down here, of 60 different things that fit that bill. Now, if I come over to this tab here, I got this all on a list I can print out. But here are these things that I can be that sure of, okay? They're almost certainly going to the left if they're in the middle, if it's middle hash, and they're in a gun far backfield. 92% of the time, the play goes to the left in that situation. We can see that kind of game-changing stuff that fast. That's what Codebreaker is all about. It's what it does. We do it in a variety of different ways, depending on the data that we have. If you're an FBS team or an FCS team that works with Pro Football Focus, there are Codebreaker runs that we can do that'll blow your mind, where you can look at the position of the tight end and all these different things and see exactly what's probably coming on a play. But if you're a high school in Alabama doing your standard film breakdown, you can get this kind of information in a heartbeat out of your film data. And that's what Codebreaker does. Again, the key to it, again, it's tendencies, and you're used to tendencies. You guys are looking for tendencies, and you're getting tendencies in reports all the time. The key that's different here is we can find things that are buried down in there that can really flip a game, where you can really know for sure what is or isn't coming. And you can know it with a very high degree of certainty because of what Codebreaker does, which again says what does and doesn't matter, looks at all the combinations of the things that does and doesn't matter, and generates highly accurate, high probability tendencies in your data. If you're interested in learning a little bit more, certainly we got a contact form there on our website. By all means, click on that. let us know. You can always send us your data. We'll spin it through here and show you exactly what it does. But thanks for taking a minute, and we look forward to crossing paths with you soon. Take care.